everybody. Can you hear me in the back there? Yes? No?
No, not really.
Even closer? Can you hear me now? Okay. Booth, are we on? All righty, we'll try that again. So good evening, everybody. My name is Charlene Margot, and I'm the founder and director of the Parent Education Series here in the Sequoia Union High School District. And I want to thank you all for coming out on a busy spring night, especially you students, because I know it is not easy. You've got homework and things to do, but this really is a very special presentation, and I think you're going to enjoy it. It's both fun and educational, but I'm going to let our speaker tell you more about that. Okay, as you came in, you were handed a very short survey. I hope that you will fill that in and hand it back at the end of the evening. It helps us plan for our future funding, and also I promise I read every one. It really, oh, that sounds different. Now you can probably hear me for real. So anyway, this little short survey, if you could fill that out and hand it in, we would really appreciate it. We read them all and record them. That information gets back to the principal at the schools and our funders, so we think about plans for next year. Okay, let me tell you a little bit about our presenter, Jacob Gonzalez, who is here tonight with Officer Art Montiel from the California Highway Patrol. And also, Jacob has a very nice bio, but I just found out it's also a little bit outdated, so he may update you as we go, okay? All righty. Jacob Gonzalez earned a Bachelor's of Science in Criminal Justice from California State University, Sacramento. He joined the Impact Team Drivers team as an intern in 2014, and upon his graduation from CSUS, was promoted to the position of Education Outreach Ambassador. Jacob was drawn to Impact Team Drivers because he wanted to make a positive difference by saving lives through education. Jacob travels statewide. He's actually come to us tonight from Sacramento, right? With public information officers and protectors from the California Highway Patrol to bring Impact Team Drivers English and Spanish curricula to schools in underserved areas. As a former California Highway Patrol explorer, Jacob aspires to become a member of the California Highway Patrol. Until then, he will continue his advocacy as an education outreach ambassador, as he knows public service is his true calling. Please join me in a really warm welcome for Officer Montiel and Jacob Gonzalez.
It's honestly so weird when somebody tells like your little biography, right? Really quickly, is it okay if I can have those in the back get a little bit closer? I know my voice projects, but I'm trying my absolute best to try to get you guys a little bit closer to a group, just to make it easier for myself and for Officer Montiel. Thank you guys so much. I really appreciate it.
You guys can go from this anywhere in front.
We promise we're
Right
right
in the middle.
Thank you guys so much. I really appreciate it. And we have a couple of people trickling in. For those who just entered, feel free to take a seat out here in the front just to make it easier for myself and for Officer Montiel. Thank you so much. All right. Are you guys able to hear my voice through the microphone or even outside of the microphone? A little bit of both? Okay, perfect. All right, we'll let those trickle in a little bit more before I get started here. All right, so like Charlene was explaining, my name is Jacob. I'm from Sacramento. I actually drove up this evening. I will say Bay Area traffic is a whole different beast than Sacramento traffic, so I don't know how you guys do it on a daily basis, but it's a pleasure to be here. But before I start my presentation, I want to ask us a question, okay? And I know you see a CHP officer in the room, and I know you guys see a little, card here on my presentation template. But right now, don't even think about driving, all right? For you teens out there in the audience, what do you guys consider lethal that's deadly to your age group? Anything that can kill you?
Alcohol.
All right, alcohol. So, I'm of age, and let's say I had 2 beers last night, but I'm still here. How is that alcohol going to be deadly or lethal to me? So if I choose to overconsume alcohol, right, and get alcohol poisoning, absolutely. Officer Montiel,
Was it?
I think she deserves a t-shirt. Young lady right here in front. Awesome. We have t-shirts, by the way. Anybody else? What do you guys consider lethal? Yes. Guns or drugs? Drugs. All right. Let's say I have a little dime bag of cocaine right here in my pocket. Is that dime bag just going to spontaneously combust and kill me? How is that dime bag going to be lethal to me? So if I overconsume the drugs, do I have an overdose? Absolutely. Officer Montiel, let you do your thing, sir. All right, one more. Yes. Cell phones. All right. So I have a cell phone right here. If I start using it, it's kind of unprofessional of me to start using it, but it's not going to kill me. How is that cell phone going to be lethal to me?
If you look at the screen instead of looking down the road.
Absolutely. So making that choice to use your cell phone behind the wheel of a car, right? Definitely. So, let's see where my clicker's at. We went all over the country and we asked teens your age what they consider deadly or lethal. This is what we got from the teens, but we, as an organization, we added the fifth word. Grizzlies, crack, AIDS, swords, lip gloss. Why would we add lip gloss to that poster?
Because you're looking in the mirror while you're putting it on.
Absolutely. Where are my eyes when applying my lip gloss as I'm driving? In the mirror, right? And where are my hands when applying my lip gloss as I'm driving? Holding that lip gloss. Perfect. Locked on. Next. Piranhas, poison Ebola, chainsaws, lattes. What are paying like $7 nowadays for a Starbucks drink? So you want every last drop of that Starbucks drink? Where are my eyes when I'm drinking my latte as I'm driving? Ceiling of the car, right? And where are my hands as I'm drinking my latte as I'm driving? On the cup. Perfect. We got a quiet group, Officer Montiel. Next. Cobra, tsunamis, cancer, assassins, and texting. How can texting be lethal? Okay, I think we would all agree that texting and driving is pretty dangerous, right? But what about this? What if I don't text and drive? What if I'm that person that chooses to never grab my phone behind the wheel of a car? However, I have a mount, and that mount is actually located on the dashboard of my car, and I put my phone on that mount, and all of a sudden my best friend shoots me a text message. Where's my mind? On that text message, right? Because clearly my best friend has something interesting to tell me. So I can show you all a video, and I want y'all to keep in mind that every single person in this video, the real life people and the real life stories. And I apologize if the video is a little bit low in volume, or if the voices are actually delayed to the projecting screen. It might be because of the fact that we had to play around with the audio, okay? Thank you guys, and we'll talk about the stories afterward.
Something that kills you or somebody around you.
Falling from a building.
Skydiving without a parachute.
Maybe a stampede. Untied shoes.
Monkeys.
Ninjas for sure.
The mafia.
Bad takeout.
Somebody with a samurai sword trying to chop somebody's head off.
A bobcat.
Oh, a bad dad joke is very deadly.
So what do you consider lethal? For most, it's either the dangers they sense immediately around them, or it's based on an experience they had. We asked random people what they thought was the #1 killer of teens in America. Here's what they said.
I want to say drunk driving.
Drunk driving.
Yeah.
Sex, drugs, and alcohol.
Possibly drug overdose. Drugs.
Cigarettes?
Drinking.
Online dating.
The #1 killer of teens in America is something we've all participated in. Reckless and distracted driving. We have all seen someone send a text while driving, post a picture, dig through a bag, or turn to talk to friends, all while supposedly keeping their eyes on the road. So, for the next few minutes, we want to show you the lives that have been shattered by reckless and distracted driving, and the simple things that you can do to avoid becoming a statistic.
Cuba police say they now have a prime example of the damage distracted driving can cause.
A Central California teenager is behind bars after a car crash that killed her younger sister.
Live on Instagram while driving, her younger sister was killed. The crash was all recorded, and this is a distracted driver. There were 2 minors in the car, and they were not wearing seatbelts.
A light vigil to remember Christine Martinez, who was just 17 years old when she was killed in that crash.
The 18-year-old Summer Solomon was behind the wheel when she lost control, the car rolling 3 times. Martinez ejected from the vehicle. Through tears and candlelight, they gathered, united in their grief, mourning a young life cut short.
She was always so happy on the field.
Loved ones say the losses are devastating.
So what is reckless and distracted driving? Distracted driving is any time you have to take your eyes off the road, your hands off the wheel, or when your mind is not focused on driving for any reason. And reckless driving is speeding and acting like a total fool. Now for the simple part. How do we keep from needlessly dying in a car crash? That's easy. First, tell your friends that as much as you love them, to sit down and be quiet. Second, realize that you decrease the risk of crashing your car by 2,000% when you don't text and drive. Third, come to terms with the fact that you might have to wake up a few minutes earlier so you're not speeding or running stop signs while putting your life and the life of others at risk. Still not exactly sure what reckless and distracted driving is? Let's see what our resident experts have to say.
Oh, it's on?
Oh, hi, my name is Lex.
Oh, and I'm Hayden. And we're here to help you save lives.
Like mine.
Because distracted driving is deadly.
Deadlier than my grandpa's farts.
Gross, dude. Ew.
And gross like all you kissy-face kids that drive. You boys are like, hey, baby, give me a kiss. And you girls like, oh, you're so hot. I'll give you all the kisses in the world. Besides being nasty, you're not looking at the road.
And what's with you eating in the car? You have drink in one hand and a burger in the other. And think you could steal with your knees? You ain't Spider-Man. Do you really want your last meal to be off the dollar menu?
And last but not least, your phones. It doesn't matter if you're driving hands-free, but when you're on it, you're driving brain-free. And taking pictures of yourself and texting your friends, that's stupid.
Lex. No name calling. No matter how lame driving with your phone in the car is.
Sorry. Not sorry.
Well, a lot of you should be sorry. Seriously, you gotta cut the distracted driving. Put two hands on the wheel, eyes on the road, and your brain focused. The reason this is so important to me is that I recently lost my 19-year-old cousin, Christian, in a crash that was completely avoidable. And I miss him every day.
Let's see what's so distracting.
What?
Texting.
Texting?
I like to dance when I drive. Car dancing.
Phones.
Trying to find the right song.
Reading a book.
Food?
I get distracted by directions a lot.
Talking to friends.
Doing makeup.
I admittedly have changed and drove before. I tried to write a paper on my laptop while I was driving.
What we often hear from victims is that they never thought it would happen to them. That their son, daughter, friend, or classmate could be involved in a fatal car crash. And no one could imagine causing such a tragic event.
Let me tell you about Donovan.
He was my teammate.
He was my son.
He was a classmate.
He was my best friend.
He was my boyfriend.
My son was my baby boy.
I met Donovan in about 8th grade, and we just immediately became friends. We just connected.
And I came here before my freshman year, and he was the first person that actually talked to me.
Looking at how he interacted with others, it was something that made me proud. Donovan was definitely a people person. He attracted all kinds.
I was playing line, and he was the running back, and I led block him all the way for a touchdown. And ever since then, we just became good friends.
I see him as the leader of the pack.
He would not only lead by example, but also try to help others sort through whatever they were going through in their own lives. A day I'll never forget. Life as I knew it ended forever.
And then we were driving home. We were just kids having fun.
I was going over the speed limit excessively, and we were blaring the music up really loud.
And I noticed that we were going pretty fast.
And it was causing the car to swerve back and forth.
And we were making fun of her, telling her can't you keep the car in a straight line?
My response was, oh, like this? And I jerked the wheel back and forth.
I remember all the sounds of the car crashing.
I looked around and I see Donovan.
But he wasn't moving. So I sat with Danica. I kept telling her, Donovan's dead. Donovan's dead.
I even remember calling out Donovan's name and, hoping that he would hear me and just get up.
The Madera Ranchos community is mourning the death of a teenager killed in a car crash early this morning.
Not my son, not my boy.
And I think that was one of the most painful things to experience, was hearing a mother cry about her son.
The screaming of a mother, just now finding out that her son is dead. And all simply because of something that was so preventable.
My life was shattered by distracted driving. The decisions made by everyone in the car, including Donovan, are what's responsible for his death. Were they bad kids? No. Did they make bad decisions? Absolutely. And my son Donovan, he knew to always wear his seatbelt. But why that night did he choose not to? I'll ask myself that question for the rest of my life. So why does my family choose to share our worst moment? Because we want each of you to remember that every time you get in a vehicle, you have to make good choices. Otherwise, it could be the last choice you make, as it was for my son Donovan.
So we've heard the compelling stories. We've seen the stats, and you understand the simplicity of the message. What is most lethal to young people is making poor choices in a car. The good news is that we have the power to change and stop the #1 killer of young people in America. When you are behind the wheel, focus on the road ahead of you and make good decisions each and every ride. If you're a passenger, don't distract the driver, and everyone gets to where they're going safely. Finally, visit what'slethal.com. Together, we can save lives.
So, before I talk to y'all about what happened during the night of the crash, I'd like to tell you guys a little bit more about Donovan Danica. So Donovan was a 4.0 academic scholar who was the all-star running back of his high school football team, who had 23 conditional offers to go play at the collegiate level. Texas A&M, LSU, Alabama, University of Oregon, Michigan State, big schools. See, Donovan's ultimate dream ever since elementary school was to play in the NFL, and he was in that journey. But see, Donovan wasn't what most people would think as a typical jock. Donovan was known to be one of the most humble, one of the most down-to-earth, and one of the most cordial guys at his high school. See, Donovan was the type of guy that if he saw you eating by yourself during lunchtime, he'd come up to you, acknowledge you, shake your hand and say, "Hi, my name is Donovan. Can I join you? Do you want to join my friends and I?" That's the type of person Donovan was, the type of family he came from. Danica's girlfriend was also a varsity athlete. She played volleyball, but see, the difference between the two of them was that she was actually made fun of at her high school. Everybody knew Danica was what they referred to as a granny driver. And what that essentially meant was that Danica was just a safe driver. She didn't have a parking ticket, but she didn't care. She didn't care what anybody would say about it, because she knew that every single time she got behind the wheel of a car, she'd get from destination A to destination B safely, and that's all that mattered to her. But that night, the 5 teens were invited to go to a high school party. Later in the evening, Dustin found out there was going to be drugs and alcohol present at this party. This was only 2 weeks shy of their senior year. They knew college was just around the corner, so they said, "You know what? That's not our scene. Instead, why don't we go watch a movie?" And they all agreed. So they're here at Donovan's house. And mind you, Donovan's house is that house where everybody goes to on the weekends. You know that house where you don't even have to knock, you just walk in? I'm sure most of you guys know that home, right? That was Donovan's house. And Martha, Donovan's mom, had a two-hooker at her household. And that two-hooker was this. Every single time I step foot in my house, I expect you to come give me a hug saying hello. That's hug number one. And every single time you leave my house, I expect you to come give me my second hug, the hug goodbye. Hug number two. So as long as you give Martha her 2 hugs, you were always welcome into her home. So as we're playing board games at Donovan's house, they look at the time and realize, oh crap, we're gonna miss the first movie showing. So instead of rushing to the movie theater, they pick up the phone and they call their parents and they say this. Hey, here's the deal. We're not gonna go to his high school party anymore. Instead, we wanna go watch a movie. We got distracted, we missed the first movie showing. Is it okay if we watch a later movie showing? And like any other parent would ask, the parents asked them, who are you going with? What time are you getting back? And who's driving? And the moment all the team explained to the parents that Danica was gonna be the driver of the night, all of them had the exact same reaction. Oh, Danica's driving? Yeah, that's perfectly fine. As long as you guys get back to Donovan's home safely. And they all promised their parents. So they're hanging out, they look at the time again, they realize, hey, we should probably hit the road. So they leave Donovan's house, and they pound into Danica's car because Danica was the only one in that entire group of friends that was off a provisional license, which meant she was able to have passenger inside her car. So as they're pounding into Danica's car, Danica realizes, oh crap, I forgot to give Martha her second hug goodbye. So Danica takes off her seatbelt, walks towards Donovan's front door, not knowing that Martha was already there waiting for her. Danica goes up to Martha and tells Martha, Martha, I'm sorry, I forgot to give you your second hug goodbye. And Martha tells Danica, Danica, I love you. Thank you for always being such an incredible driver. Not knowing that 3 hours later she'd be notified that Donovan passed away. Danica turns around, gets back in the car, and on they go to the movie theater. They get to the movie theater, they come out of the movie, they're super juicy, super pumped. Transformers was a great movie at the time. So as the 3 boys are coming out of the movie theater, they realize, oh crap, we forgot something inside the movie theater. So the 3 boys turn around to retrieve the forgotten inside the movie theater, as Danica and Alex go across the street to buy a bag of chips and an energy drink and fill it for some gas. As the 2 girls finish what they're doing, they get back inside the car, they turn the car back around to the front of the movie theater, the 3 boys pile into the back of the car, and on they go back to Donovan's home. Mine's just Madera, California. It's about 20 miles north of Fresno. And for those of you that aren't really familiar with the Central Valley, the road's pretty rural. There really wasn't much traffic because it was already late at night. But what do you guys remember from that night that caused that crash to happen? What was the environment like inside that car? Anybody? Yes, young man. The music was up really loud. Do you guys think that would be a distraction for Danica in any way, shape, or form? Absolutely. Yes, the music was up really loud. What else was going on inside that car that you guys remember? What was that? They're eating. Believe it or not, the 3 boys in the back start wrestling for the bag of chips and energy drink. Do you guys think that would be a distraction for Danica in any way? Why do you guys think the car was shifting left and right? Yes. Okay, changing weight. Well, why else? Yes, sir. Speed wobble. They're speeding, right? What was said to Danica by one of the boys in the back in like the most sarcastic tone of voice that you guys remember?
Can't keep the wheel straight.
Exactly. So Dustin, in the most sarcastic tone of voice, says, hey, Danica, why keep the car going in a straight line? And she'll look with her guys' hands what her reaction to that statement was. She jerks the wheel, right? The car was traveling at a higher rate of speed. The music is up, learning a lot. The 3 boys in the back start wrestling for the bag of chips and the energy drink. There's peer pressure. Danica chooses to jerk her steering wheel. All these factors cause Danica to lose control of her car, and she goes off the roadway, heading into a tree. But because the car was traveling at a higher rate of speed, it hit a first tree, bounced from that first tree, and went towards the second tree. But before it hit that second tree, the rear passenger door flew open, and 1, 2, 3, the 3 boys flew out of the car. What was not being worn? Their seatbelts, right? All of a sudden, that car hit that second tree, and they stopped. Danica was thinking to herself at this moment, whoa, rewind, I don't drive like this. The one time I take one poor choice, why is this happening to me? As the headlights of her car were actually illuminating the roadway, the 3 boys lined horses on the road. Danica was trapped. She was able to get out of the car until the fire department showed up with the jaws of life. But Alex was able to unbuckle her seatbelt, and she crawled out of the car and she ran towards the 3 boys. She went up to Dustin and told Dustin, Dustin, please wake up, Dustin, something bad has happened, please wake up. And Dustin was able to stand up with broken ribs and a punctured kidney to then check on his friends. He walked over to Gavin, and Gavin had a pulse but was completely knocked out. Then he turned around and he walked over to Donovan. and he got 2 fingers, and he placed his side of Donovan's neck. And at that moment, he realized that his brother wasn't there with him anymore. And I want to ask you guys, who do you guys want to be in this situation? You guys want to be Gavin, who not only was ejected from the vehicle, he was given a 10% chance of living by his doctor and put in a 2-week medically induced coma. Thankfully and miraculously, he woke up from that coma, but he was told 3 things by his doctor. Number 1, Gavin, you're in a terrible crash. You have no memory, no recollection whatsoever of this crash. Number 2, Gavin, your best friend Donovan has passed away. The community is trying to move forward, and so should you, and I regret to inform you that the funeral has already occurred. And number 3, Gavin, you may never walk again. Mind you, Gavin had an all-star varsity soccer scholarship to play at UCSB on a full ride. And to be told you may never walk again? What do you guys want to be Danica, who after every single milestone in her life, milestones are those things that should make you happy, like for you teens out there, graduating from high school, graduating from college, getting married, buying a house, having a kid, those milestones don't make Danica happy anymore. Because till this day, 2019, all Danica thinks to herself is that Donovan's never going to experience that because of me. Now, I don't even want to ask you guys if you guys want to be Donovan. The whole point of trying to make you guys that you guys can choose not to be any of these teens because they all chose to be lethal to themselves. And if you guys haven't noticed, I haven't said the word car accident. These are not called car accidents, these are called car crashes or car collisions. And I'll explain the difference. An accident is something that you cannot prevent in any way, shape, or form. I could be walking on the sidewalk and all of a sudden I get struck by lightning and I die. Was I able to prevent that? No, right? That's an accident. Whereas a car crash or a car collision was all because of one poor choice, taken behind the wheel by either a driver or a passenger. That's why here with Impacted Drivers in the California Highway Patrol, we genuinely believe car crashes are 100% preventable because it's just preventing that one poor choice taken behind the wheel. Now, I'd like to ask you guys, who do you guys think should have been held responsible for this crash? Anybody? Yes. Danica, why do you think so? You're not wrong.
Because she was driving, he took the comment too seriously. He was going too fast.
So Danica ultimately was the one who chose to jerk her steering wheel, right? Definitely. Anybody else think differently? It's funny that you say that because if Martha, Donovan's mom, were here doing this presentation to you all, she would say every single person in that car had some fault in my son's death, including Donovan himself. Why did my son not wear his seatbelt that night? I don't know. Because my family never left the driveway without everybody being buckled up in that car. And knowing that Danica was that granny driver, do you all think had one person spoke up and said, honestly, Danica, can you please slow down? Or, hey, like, I don't feel safe right now. Do you guys think she would have stopped? Definitely. So I'd like to show you guys an image. And it might be a little hard to see, so I'm actually going to have Officer Montiel hold up one of the t-shirts we gave out. Who did we give out a t-shirt to? Do you mind holding up your t-shirt? Do you mind having Officer Montiel hold that up really quickly? Just so the audience can have a better visual representation? Awesome. So what image do you guys see on this poster? And what does the skull usually symbolize? Perfect, you guys are locked on. So I'm going to have Officer Montiel walk around with the skull t-shirt. Every single dot in this skull represents a life lost by a teen here in the United States in one calendar year. The color of that dot represents how that teen passed away. So the red dots that you see are those teens who have died due to murder. The yellow dots that you see are those teens who have died due to suicide. But what color dots do you see the most of? White, which are car crashes, which is symbolic of the #1 killer of teenagers in the United States. Now, to give you guys a better perspective, there's about 4,000 white dots in that shirt. That's about 11 teens a day, every single day in this country for the past 10 years. Believe it or not, 75% of those white dots had nothing to do with drugs and alcohol. So teens out there in the audience, I commend your generation for understanding that drinking and driving is bad. That's why your generation doesn't do it as much as the older generation. I commend your generation for understanding that getting high and driving is bad. That's why you guys don't do that either. But did you guys know the moment you pick up your cell phone as you're driving is as dangerous as driving drunk? Just cognitively, that portion of your brain, 33% of your brain, gone. Because your mind's on that phone. as well as your eyes off the road and your hands off the wheel. Now, those white dots don't account to the other 400,000 teenagers that are majorly injured, like your Dustins and your Gaps. Now, I'm not talking about your bumps and bruises, guys. I'm talking about your life-changing injuries. 50% of those white dots will not be on their shirt had they just chosen to wear their seatbelt. But the most eerie thing about all those white dots is that they share one thing in common. And it's not the fact that they're all deceased. It's the fact that they share the same mentality. That this will never happen to me. That this will only happen in videos that I watch at school or movies that I watch in Hollywood, but it happens to families every single day in this country. And myself and Officer Montiel have the privilege to work with these families. But teens out in the audience, it is the absolute worst having to hear a parent talk about their worst heartbreak. Because you guys wouldn't ever want to put your parents through that heartbreak. That's our skull poster. So we asked ourselves, what can we do to prevent these teen fatalities from occurring? So ever since 2007, what all 50 states have enacted in their own kind of way is what we call our graduated driver's licensing laws. I'd like to introduce Officer Montiel from the California Highway Patrol, Redwood City office, and he's going to give you guys more insight towards what GDL is and why GDL was honestly created. Officer Montiel, the floor is yours, sir.
All right, so we explained a little bit about what we're trying to do, right? How many of you have actually heard about graduated driver's licensing? Okay, a few of you. How many of you guys already have of the teens? I know the parents hopefully have a driver's license. How many of the teens already have the driver's license? A couple. And how many of you are already trying to get your license? A few, right? Some of the parents, how many of you are actually trying to get your kids to wait till they're 18 before they can get their license because you think it's going to be a lot more dangerous for them to get it now rather than waiting till they're 18? None of you? Great. Okay. So we're going to go over the requirements to get your driver's license, right? So once you get your driving education, either online or at school, and a lot of the schools don't offer it anymore, you're going to go to the DMV and take the written test. I mean the written test. I'm going to trip over here. Okay? Once you get pass the written test, you're going to get your learner's permit, right? There's going to be a requirement once you have your learner's permit. Who can tell me what the requirement is? Yes?
Beginning behind the wheel instruction.
What's that?
Beginning behind the wheel instruction.
Right, so you're going to be driving for the next 6 months with a licensed driver over the age of 25, and you have to drive about 50 hours, right? At least 50 hours, and 10 of those hours is to be done at night. Okay, we want you to start getting some practice with the licensed adult. Okay. Once you do those 6 months, you're going to go back to DMV. You're going to get your take the behind the wheel test. You pass it, and now you're going to get your provisional driver's license. Okay. What are some of the restrictions that you have once you get your provisional driver's license? Who can tell me one of them? Yes.
No one in the car under 25.
Close. Anybody else?
No driving.
Very close. Huh?
11 p.m. to 5 a.m. No driving between 11 p.m. and 5 a.m.
I couldn't understand that.
No driving between 11 p.m. and 5 a.m.
Okay, yeah, that is one of the requirements. No driving between 11 and 5, right? And we're going to talk about why. You cannot have any passengers under the age of 20 unless there's a driver over 25 in the vehicle. Okay? So, for parents, your kid has a provisional driver's license, and you're like, okay, well, I'm over 25, we're going to go to a party, right? My kid can drive me home, so hey, we're going to have a few drinks, right? Can you guys do that? No? Why not?
We're not allowed to drive if we're intoxicated.
Correct. So the driver that's over 25 needs to be able and willing to take over the wheel in case something happens, right? That's why we want you guys there in the vehicle. So if you're going to be intoxicated, you might as well not be there, right? So that's one of the requirements. And the last one's going to be that once you're going through your provisional driver's license, you cannot use any cell phone device or any Bluetooth or anything like that, any electronic device while you're driving until after you turn 18, okay? After that, you get your full driver's license and you're all set to go. Any questions on that? Yes?
So when you have hands-free through the car, is that not allowed?
Unless they're over 18, they can't do it. Right? Yes?
When do you get your full license for the teenager?
I'm sorry?
When they pass the test at DMV,
Once they pass
they get an Indian license.
they're gonna drive for a year, and then they get to the full license. Okay? Oh, for the question was, when do they get their full license? So once they get their provisional driver's license, they're gonna drive for a year, and then they get their full license, right? So if they start at 15 and a half, for the first 6 months, they're gonna drive with a permit, and then at 16, they get the provisional, so at 17, they could have a full license, okay? So, okay, one more, and then we'll do the rest of the questions at the end, yes?
A lot of parents have had one sibling on a provisional license drive other siblings to school on a daily basis. Is that okay?
Nope. So the only time you can have somebody drive a sibling on a provisional driver's license is on an emergency, and the parent has to ride on that day. So you cannot have your provisional license driver drive their siblings unless they're over 25, right? Or over 20 actually. Okay? So the next slide shows the relative risk of having a fatal crash. So if you notice, with no passengers, you'll have the relative risk at 1, right? Once you start adding passengers under 21, it's going to go up to 1.4, 2 passengers, 2, 3 passengers, 4.7. Do you guys notice this right here? If you put a passenger over 35, the relative risk actually drops below 1, right? So what does that mean? Having an adult in the vehicle is going to decrease the risk that your teen is going to have while driving the vehicle. Now, we talked about driving at night, right? Why do we have the restriction of you guys not driving between 11 and 5? You can tell me. I'm going to pick on one of you.
Nothing good happens.
Nothing good happens, exactly. For one thing, you should be sleeping because you got to go to school the next day, right? Now, visibility is poor, right? You don't have the experience. What time do bars close at night? Okay, if the kids answer that question, parents, you guys are talking about it. How do the kids know that the bars close at 2? All right, yeah, most bars close around 2 o'clock. We're going to be the busiest between 12 and 3, right? But if you notice, after 9 p.m., you can see how much the fatal crashes increase. And then they start decreasing, right? But obviously, we don't want you guys out that late. That's one of the main reasons why we don't want you guys driving at night. And then remember I asked you in the beginning, how many of the parents would rather have their kids wait till they're 18 instead of starting at 15 and a half? There's people that, actually one of my nephews waited till he was 18, and when you wait till you're 18, you can go to the DMV, you don't have to go through the graduated driver's license program. However, you don't have the experience that the 15 and a half or 16-year-olds get if they start through the program, okay? My nephew waited till he was 18. He asked me, Uncle, can you take me to the DMV to try to get my license? I'm like, sure, let's go. So he's driving, and he basically pulled up in front of one of the cars as he was coming out of the house. So I'm like, this kid's not gonna pass, right? We show up at the DMV, 20 minutes later, Uncle, I got my license. I'm like, okay, I'm driving back. You're not driving back, right? So, if you notice somebody who waits till they're 18, they have higher probability of crashes versus somebody who started at age 16. Why? Because when you start at 16, one of the requirements you're going to be driving with your parents. Your parents are going to teach you all the tricks that they've learned in the last 30, 40 years. So many parents are around that age. I didn't want to say 60. But you guys are going to get some of the experience that if you wait till you're 18, you're not going to get. Okay? So we can show you a lot of graphics and a lot of statistics, but we find it's easier and you guys will actually keep it better if we show you more videos. So I'm going to show you one more video. This talks about one teen from San Jose, and we'll talk about it after.
I will never forget Natalia or the choices that were made that night.
I wish I could just pick up the phone and call her or just text her and tell her how I miss her.
Me and my sister, we looked forward to a lot of things, to graduating high school, to getting married, and being each other's maid of honor.
Natalia was gone in a whisper. There was no warning, no goodbye, nothing.
Natalia didn't plan for this to happen, and in no way would want for us to have to go through this grief and to live out the rest of our lives like this.
I've always looked up to my sister, and the way she did things was amazing. So when I saw what she did, I knew I wanted to be just like her, like when she tried out for cheer.
She was an exciting cheerleader. She was really amazing. She was always full out, always had energy, always knew her material.
When I saw her cheering at the games, I was like, I wanted to do that. It looks so fun, and everyone becomes so close to each other that I would want to do that.
She was the person that was bubbly and sassy, and her personality always shined through.
She was definitely a person that I could tell everything to and who would help me with a lot of my problems.
People gravitated towards her. She really just loved to entertain and know people and observe people. She was a bright, shining star. She really was.
Natalia was a go-getter. Natalia wouldn't settle for no. She did everything and wanted to experience life.
She always talked about the future. Everything from what she was going to wear to the prom, to when she was going to drive, what kind of car she was going to get, where she was going to college, but she had very defined goals.
Natalia was getting ready to celebrate her sweet 16 birthday in a week. It was just like any other day. We were having fun and laughing and shopping.
We were just relaxing. My parents went out, and I remember my sister, she came in from her room, and she goes, "How do I look?" And I like, "You look beautiful," and I gave her a hug.
Natalia had gone out with her friends. We were under the impression that an adult was driving, but an adult was not driving. A child with a provisional license was driving. At 9:45, she sent me a text and said, "We're on our way home, Mom." And my last words to her were, "Okay."
Before the car crash happened, I heard that there was loud music playing.
There were young girls living life and enjoying a little bit of freedom.
The driver was inexperienced and was driving very fast.
There were distractions in the vehicle. At the time that the car was being driven, one of the passengers was using their cell phone, and they were using some sort of a social media application.
And the driver happened to look back at a critical moment in the turn of the road, and when she looked forward, there was no hope. She hit the tree straight on.
I'm a firefighter. I've been doing this for a long time and a public servant, and we tend to think that it's not going to happen to us. That's our job. That's what we do.
And we were driving up to the crash thing, and we didn't know what was going on. And my dad made me and my mom stay in the car, and we were really scared.
I see the lights, I see the accident, I see the vehicle, and the vehicle is ripped to shreds.
I got a call, and they said, "We need you to get down to the hospital. They're transporting Natalia to the hospital." And, even now it just gives me chills, that call again.
And that bed, McKinney Hospital bed, is there, and you can see the sheet. You can see a white sheet covering somebody. That's Natalia.
And Chris comes to me, and I have a million questions. I'm saying, what happened? Can I see her? Is she okay? What injuries does she have? What are they doing? And he looked at me, and he said, "She's gone."
What? Like the girl I grew up with, my own sister that I grew up with is gone. The one that we used to play all the time together outside. That's what I thought of as soon as he said that.
There are no words for losing a child, and how that affects your other children, how that affects their friends, how that affects their grandparents. It's a hole. It's a loss. It will never be recovered. The passing of Natalia has changed us, from our holidays to our get-togethers to just sitting around watching TV.
It takes a moment to make a bad decision, but that bad decision that you make in that moment can have a lifetime of regret and pain and anguish.
Natalia had made a bad decision and a bad choice to go with someone who did not have the proper license and experience.
I do believe that there were things that everyone could have done to prevent that accident from happening.
If they weren't on their phones or if they were actually paying attention to the road and going the speed limit.
Getting behind the wheel of a car is probably the most dangerous thing that a young person is ever going to do in their entire life. Really, the teens are the ones that have the power to change the statistics. Your parents can't be there with you when that decision time comes.
I'm hoping with her message that she will continue to change the world in a way that we hadn't expected.
They're gonna hear her story, and someone is gonna go, that girl was amazing, and look at what happened. I'm not gonna let that happen to me. I'm not gonna let that happen to my friends. I'm gonna be that person that says, hey guys, we're not gonna get in this car. I'm not gonna ride with you, sorry, you shouldn't be driving.
I don't want them to feel like they lost it all because of one decision. I don't want anyone to feel that pain. It's a horrible pain.
The choices you make can genuinely affect the rest of your life, how it did with the Salcido family. And the reason why I wanted to share Natalia's story to you all is because this happened right in your guys' backyard, not that far here from Redwood City. Natalia was from Gilroy, and Chris Salcido actually worked with the San Jose Fire Department. And this happened the night before Mother's Day. And Natalia, that night, decided that she wanted to essentially surprise her mother with Mother's Day cards. So her and her friends that night decided to go to Panera Bread to have some dinner, and following Panera Bread, they would go to a Target and buy some Mother's Day cards to be able to give their Mother's Day cards to their mothers the next day. Well, during that evening, Chris and Andorra, they actually were gone for a firefighter retreat that Chris had that night. And so Natalia sent Andorra a text asking, hey mom, is it okay if I can go get dinner at Panera Bread with my friends? And Andorra asked her, well, who's gonna be driving you? And Natalia unfortunately lied to her saying, oh, well, Brianna's mom's gonna drive us. And so Andorra said, okay, sounds good. I know that Brianna's on her provisional license, but as long as it's her mom, you're good to go. So that evening comes by, and Brianna gets to Natalia's front door, and Natalia runs into Noelle's room and says, hey Noelle, how do I look? And she said, oh, you look beautiful, awesome, I'm gonna go pick up some dinner at Panera Bread, and then I'll be right back. And Noelle said, sounds good. Natalia leaves her house, and Noelle runs upstairs and looks outside the window and notices that it wasn't Brianna's mom who had picked Natalia up. She noticed it was Brianna and one of Brianna's friends. Until this day, Noelle says, what if I had called my mom then and there? I feel like it's my fault. Noelle was 12 years old at that time. To feel that sense of guilt and to be able to say, well, that was my fault. I should have told my mom. It wasn't any circumstance to be placed on her for that burden. Well, they get to the Panera Bread, they have dinner, then they follow and go into this Target, and they buy these Mother's Day cards. And about 9:45 at night, Natalia sends Andorra a text message saying, hey mom, I'm on my way home. And the last thing Andorra says is, okay. Andorra and Chris were already home at this point, and so 9:55 hits. Nothing. 10 o'clock hits. Nothing. 10:05, suddenly the kitchen phone rings. And Andorra gets off the sofa and walks towards the kitchen and answers the phone. And the phone call said this, hello, this is Officer so-and-so from Gilroy PD. Am I speaking to Natalia's parents? And she said that the feeling in her stomach was the most awful thing she has ever experienced till this day. And she hung up. She went back into the living room and sat down on the sofa. Once again, the phone rang. And Chris said, "Who's that?" And she said, "Oh no, it's a prank caller, don't worry about it." And Chris said, "No, I'll go pick it up, stay here." Chris answers the phone. Once again, officer says, "Hello, this is Gilroy PD officer so-and-so. Please don't hang up, please don't hang up. Natalia was involved in the crash. You need to come down here now." And so unfortunately, they decided to go down to the crash site with no one in the vehicle. And at that moment, he realized that Natalia had died on impact. Unfortunately, it wasn't Brianna who was on her phone. It wasn't Natalia who was on her phone. As they were driving back that night, Officer Maselli was explaining that it was a social media application. Well, that social media application was Snapchat. And the rear passenger saw something really funny during the Snapchat story, and she figured, hey, I'm gonna show Brianna. So she said, hey, look, Brianna. And Brianna looked over her shoulder as the phone was in the middle center console of the car. And unfortunately, because she looked over her shoulder, she was driving fast. She went off the roadway, headed into a tree, killing Natalia instantly. When we were doing these interviews with the Salcido family, we also interviewed Brianna's mom. And my executive director, Dr. Kelly Browning, actually asked Brianna's mom, saying, so did you know your daughter was on a provisional license? And the mother said, yes, I did. So knowing that your daughter was on a provisional license, why did you allow her to drive that vehicle with her friends? He said, I told her no, but in the past, I would always allow my daughter to drive. I just didn't think it was gonna be that big of a deal. She would do it every day. And then my boss asked her, well, do you think it's a big deal now? And the mother just broke down in tears. So on one end, you have a parent who is not enforcing the GDL law. And on the other end, you have a teen who unfortunately thought this white lie would just be something small. So you, as the parents out there, have the authority to enforce the graduated driver's licensing laws on your teen. And for the teens out there, it may seem inconvenient, it may seem like it's complete BS, but statistics have shown that here in California, teen fatalities have decreased by 60%. That's 2,200 lives saved every year because of graduated driver's licensing laws. But they're gonna work if and only if you choose to follow them. So what can you do as a parent? You all may think that the number one influencer in your teen's life are their friends. Believe it or not, it's you guys. Your teen has been seeing every single little thing you've been doing for their past 15, 16, 17 years old, their entire life. So if you expect your teen to have good driving behaviors, you better be that role model, because you can't be a hypocrite. So you as the parent have the ability to enforce those GDL laws. Have that conversation with your teen. Whatever it is that's gonna get them from destination A to destination B is squared away. There are a lot of apps. Most people have iPhones or Androids. A lot of them now have an opportunity to put do not disturb, or apps that actually send text messages as you're driving that will say, hey, I'm driving right now, I'll get back to you when I get to my destination. Work out a game plan. And for you teens out there, speak up when you feel unsafe. You have that voice. I'd like to share a little anecdote with you guys of just a phone call that we received not that long ago. And it was a mother from Orange County, specifically Anaheim. And we typically get a lot of phone calls at my office thanking us for coming to the high school, doing a student assembly, etc. But this phone call was a little different. Thankfully, my executive director, Dr. Kelly Browning, was the one who answered this phone call, but I'll tell you guys how this phone call went. So my boss answers the phone, and it's this mother, and she says, thank you so much for coming to my daughter's high school. It honestly was amazing, and my boss said, oh, it's an absolute pleasure, thank you so much for your appreciation. She said, no, I need you to listen. And so my boss said, okay, what's going on? And she said, well, my daughter had her homecoming football game this weekend. And unfortunately, Friday night was when my husband and I don't get out of work until later in the evening. And so my daughter was at home, and she sent me a text message asking if she could go to the homecoming football game with her friends. And I asked my daughter, well, who's going to be driving me? And she told me it was going to be one of her friend's moms giving her a ride. And I said, okay, sounds good. Have fun. They get to the homecoming football game. They win the football game. And they're pretty juiced. They're pretty pumped. And they chose to stop at a Chick-fil-A. They pick up some dinner, and they actually met with a couple of friends at the Chick-fil-A. And from the Chick-fil-A, they decided to pile a 5-person sedan with 8 people in the car. And so as they're driving back down the road, she said, my daughter immediately had a flashback from Donovan's story. She said, my daughter remembered the music blaring up really loud. She remembered that they were speeding. All these factors that immediately made her daughter feel uncomfortable. So my daughter decided to say, hey, honestly guys, can you guys slow down? And I apologize for my language, but for purposes of the story, all her friends said, hey, stop being a little bitch. And she felt horrible. She felt embarrassed, she felt betrayed. She would have never thought her friends would say that to her. So immediately her daughter thought on her toes and said, guys, pull over, I'm about to throw up. No driver in the world wants vomit in their car, right? Let's be completely honest. So immediately the driver pulled to the right, and her daughter got out of that car. And she stood there. And all her friends asked her, are you gonna get back in the car? And she said no. They're like, why not? And she said, well, I told you guys to slow down. I told you guys to stop messing around, and you guys didn't. And they're like, all right, whatever. And they left her. She felt horrible. She started crying. She gave her mom a phone call. Her mom picked her up, no questions asked. And nothing was talked about until the next morning. However, a mile down that road, just a little bit after they left her, that car got into a crash. Thankfully and miraculously, nobody was injured from that crash, but maybe, just maybe, because she was the one who decided to speak up and make that car come to a complete stop, may have been the difference between saving her friends' lives. Not saying that bad things don't happen at 20 miles an hour, because they do, but maybe, just maybe, because she was the one who chose to speak up and make that car come to a complete stop, may have been the difference between saving her friends' lives. So when I tell you teens out there in the audience to speak up, it makes a significant difference. And if your friends truly are your friends, they will care about your safety and the safety of others around you. If this presentation did impact you in any way, we do have a teen website, whatslethal.com, where you can unfortunately find a lot more stories just like Natalia's, just like Donovan's. We also do work with families on the other side of the spectrum who have chosen to drive recklessly distracted and who have unfortunately killed somebody because they made that choice. We also do give out free money through our education grant scholarship. For those of you that like free money, or for money for college coming up, we have our Create Real Impact contest. All you have to do is create either a 2-minute PSA, creative writing if you're a really good writer, so poems or essays, creative art if you're a really good artist, or a 2-minute music clip if you like making music. And we also do have special categories on how you would solve reckless and distracted driving via digital media, etc. I'll show you guys 2 examples I've won in the past. I'll show you guys the PSA, but to give you guys a little bit more insight on the actual contest, we host this every fall, every spring. So it is open to anybody who's 14 to 22 years old. So even after you graduate high school, you are still able to apply to it. And it's $1,500, and we have so many categories that all add up to $15,000. And I'll show you guys a little short PSA that has also won in the past. Creative, right? They filmed that in 40 minutes, I believe, and edited it in 25, and they made $1,500 in less than an hour and 15 minutes. Definitely something to look into if you're really good at digital media, because it's easy money, and you can spend that on a brand new laptop, a down payment for a new car, or 1,500 packets of Doritos if you guys want. Whatever it is you guys want to spend the money on, you're pretty much good to go. As long as you save it for school, you're pretty much good. But other than that, that pretty much concludes this presentation. Thank you so much for being such an awesome audience. Give yourselves a round of applause. Please give Charlene and Officer Monty a round of applause for being able to coordinate this and having me come up with something. Do you guys have any last minute questions for myself or for Officer Montiel regarding the presentation? Yes, young man.
Any statistics being collected regarding teenage passengers and whether or not the licensure status of those teenagers affects their risk? For example, is there any difference in the increase of crash risk if that teenage passenger has a driver's license versus they don't?
So That's a really good question that goes very in depth. To give you from a little bit of insight regarding the first part of your question. So is there a difference between a licensed teen versus a non-licensed teen in a car with a teen driver, right? Yeah, no, there is not. And reason being is because, let me give you this example. If everybody here over the age of 18 left this room right now, with the environment change in this room? What was that? Depends on how you look at it. But let's say all the teens in the group are your friends. Would the environment change? Absolutely, right? So that pretty much takes down that, I guess, idea of the fact that, yeah, you might be licensed, and yeah, you may know that, you know, you are more likely to crash based on the distractions you make. But at the end of the day, it's inevitable. And that's why the provisional license stage is very, very tightly knit with the enforcement aspect of it. Meaning you can't have any passengers under the age of 20 unless there's a licensed driver, regardless if those other 16, 17-year-olds have a license. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Perfect. Great, good question. I like that challenge. Yes?
How much impact does the kids taking driver's ed classes have?
What was that? Sorry.
You know, when they take the driver's ed classes, is that required in California? Does that help with the percentages?
So in order to get your learner's permit here in the state of California, you have to have completed a driver's ed course. Whether that be at the school or online, most of the time now it's online because only 5% of schools in California offer any type of driver's ed. However, it's still a state mandate. So that's why you as a parent or part of your community, it's your job to tell your district, hey, it's a California mandate, but your school doesn't provide it. So why is that? But they will only change policy if you make, you know, a ruckus out of it. But good question, yes. Yes, sir.
Can you drive in other states and get perfect?
No, you cannot. And why 10th Amendment? You know, state law. Every state has their own type of law, and it's up to the officer in their discretion. I will say I've worked with a lot of Texas State Troopers, and they get a lot of that, but Texas State Troopers, Nevada, Highway Patrol, and all the western states, a lot of them don't accept it.
I'm sorry, what was the question?
Oh, sorry. The question was, is your learner's permit valid in any other state other than California? Sorry, I should repeat the question. Yes, ma'am.
What happens to a teen who's on a provisional license and they're caught on their phone?
So the question is, what happens if you get caught violating your provisional license? So it's entirely up to the discretion of the officer. However, in the past, there have been times where, number one, they get every single person out of that car. They call the parents to pick up the people in the car. Not only that, the vehicle can be towed, which is a $300 to $400, $500 cost, depending on how much that tow company is going to charge you. The licensee, so the person with the license who's violating the provisional license, will get their license taken away for 30 days, and it's up to the traffic court judge if it can be up to 21 years old. Your insurance will skyrocket, and then you're also going to have to pay your court fees and then the citation fee. So that's what's going to happen. Is it really worth it, guys? That's up to you to determine. So that's what would happen. Yes.
So I struggle with the social aspect of this. My son has not quite got his license yet. He's had the 50 hours and about 6 months of driving, and very soon he'll take his test. And I don't let him drive with friends on the freeway, the newer drivers. And I have on surface streets. The social aspect comes out, you know, gee, you're preventing me from going with my friends somewhere to do something. And I say, well, I can drive you. Well, then that's embarrassing to have his mom driving him, you know. And so there's Uber, I guess, but that costs money. And so trying to navigate that, and also knowing the laws about when your child can drive with these younger drivers. Though I had my brothers at the beach.
Yeah.
Because they don't have enough experience. So trying to navigate that, I have found really difficult. And I was curious what you guys recommend and what others do.
So,
the child be included with the friends, right?
so correct me if I'm wrong. The question is, what type of tips and tricks would you give to yourself or your team regarding enforcing the GDL law?
That and how to still let them be included on a social event.
So, and, okay, perfect. So, for the parent, and regarding your question, I would say as a parent, you now know what should be enforced and what should not be enforced. I'd like to tell a lot of parents is that the worst thing ever about not just losing one teen, it's losing another child. So with parents saying, oh, well, I kind of want my teen, once they get their license, to drive their sibling. As Officer Montiel was explaining, that's actually not allowed, only if it is a medical emergency only. And so a lot of parents then realize, okay, that's true. I wouldn't want to lose two children. And let's be honest, teens, do you guys get along with siblings at the dinner table? Probably not.
But just because the 1 year of driving experience hits doesn't suddenly mean they're a safer driver to drive
Exactly.
to school. So,
However, statistically speaking, that 1 year will give them a significant reduction in a crash because of the experience behind the wheel. So that's why that year was placed in time. Obviously, it would be ideal to put more time, but we're not going to do that because we understand that there are social aspects and experiences that we don't want to take away from people. Awesome question. Yes, sir. I know you had your hand
Yeah, I
up.
have a question regarding that time period between 16 and 17. Is it sort of at the year mark they automatically get a full license?
Yes, sir. So, for example, like Officer Monson was explaining, if they receive their learner's permit at 15 and a half, they hold that learner's permit for 6 months. During those 6 months, they drive 50 hours, 10 of those hours being at night. After those 6 months, they go back to the DMV, they take their driver's ed, their behind the wheel test, and then they're given their provisional license. When they receive the provisional license, at the bottom right corner, we'll have the issue date. So if for whatever reason they do get pulled over, an officer is able to see when that license was issued, and that will determine how far they're into the provisional license. Not only that, but at the back of the license, we'll have the 3 posted provisions on the license. So if somebody says, well, I didn't know I had these restrictions, well, hey, look at the back of your license. It's actually posted on there. So ideally, if somebody gets their learner's permit at 16, then 6 months, that's 16 and a half, it's either 1 year provisional license or until you're 18 years old. Then all those restrictions are lifted. Does that answer your question?
But as soon as, so say you get your permit at 16, so it automatically, you make it through the year, nothing happens, you automatically get a license at 17.
Exactly.
Well, the permit is at 16, so 16 and a half you get provisional, and at 17 and a half you get
17 and a
full
half.
license.
After that year.
Yeah, so 6 months and then 1 year.
Good question. Yes?
So we're hearing lots of parents say, my kids don't care about driving. Like, they're just as happy having me drive them around. What do you say to that? Is that a good idea or a bad idea?
Believe it or not, okay, statistically speaking, no, it's a horrible idea. A lot of parents that I speak to statewide will have that misconception, well, I don't want my teen to drive until they're 18 years old because they're more mature. Well, as we saw in the graph, the more experience you have behind the wheel of a car, the less likely you are to get into a crash. So that's why I like to emphasize to parents, make your teen start driving now. Because the more experience they have behind the wheel, the less likely they are to crash. That's just what we found in our data.
Or if they're gonna wait till they're 18, then make sure they go through the GDL anyway.
Yeah.
That's up to you.
I was just thinking if you start later, you could just basically enforce it and then also in your kid.
Yes. So AB 63, which was a bill that was passed by both the Senate and the Assembly in California, but unfortunately was vetoed by Jerry Brown. AB 63 required 18-year-olds who waited till they were 18 to go through some sort of GDL. It wasn't going to be as crazy and extensive as it would be for somebody who's 15, 16, 17, but instead it would introduce some of the experience. Unfortunately, Jerry Brown said, no, I'm not going to pass this bill because of the fact that they're adults at 18. Yet, we see in the data that 18, 19, 20, 21-year-olds, where are they? Most of them are typically now in college. So at that point, we have seen a spike in fatal crashes between that 18 to 21 mark because of the lack of experience behind the wheel of a car. That's why we are trying our best to introduce another piece of legislation that will have that 18-year-old go through some sort of experience phase. Any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
Well, you know, most accidents happen around the home, but you would think it's more dangerous for them to be on the highways. Is it more or less dangerous on the highway versus around town?
believe that most crashes happen about 1.5 to 2 miles from your destination. And that might be because of, I guess, complacency, perhaps. Saying, oh, well, I'm almost there, I'm gonna take off my seatbelt. And unfortunately, people become ejected from the car because they not choose to wear the seatbelt when they're getting to their destination. So, but there's a big misconception where, okay, freeways are more dangerous because it's gonna, allow somebody to try to be prone more to speeding. But in reality, a lot of like suburb areas, and I'm sure Officer Montiel might know this more than I myself, him as a CHP officer, most fatal crashes do happen on the highways, but because most of them are either deuced or DUI.
Under the influence, distracted, things like that. So we just had a crash last week, right off of 280 in Black Mountain. 2 teenagers exiting the freeway. They came to a stop, and they started coming out of the off ramp, and actually got in front of the vehicle. The vehicle overturned and killed one of the passengers. So it wasn't even on the freeway.
Any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
Can you comment on speeding, like when teenagers